Sat Shri Akal, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Not in the Clouds podcast. And we have a real treat for you guys today. I mean, treat in one sense, we're tributing this episode to someone who's a mentor to many, who was a teacher to a lot, and sort of an elder, a real senior in Gurbani Kirtan. We're tributing this to Ustaad Harbhajan Singh Ji. And Ustad Ji has touched many lives. Ustad Ji's sort of, been a big part of Kirtan in the UK. And today, aside from Asa, myself, and Jawand, we have Kirpal Panesar, who is a leading darshanayist and Gurbani Sangeet exponent in the UK. We're joined by Jasapaji, Jasveer Singh Ji, who was one of Ustad Ji's very dear students in Leeds, and probably one of the first key students in Leeds. And Pritwal Paji is also another key student, also from Leeds, but a bit all over the place, who's currently residing in Dubai.
To do any kind of justice to their legacy and to what kind of person they were, we had out of the three of us, I had very limited interaction with Ustadji, but even though my interaction was limited, I still feel like they had a profound impact on my life. So to do them any justice, it's an honor to be joined by three people who have spent majority of their life with them, learned not only Sangeet but the way of life, and have many, many more personal moments that I'm hoping that they can share with us.
Well, Ustaad Harbhajan Singh Ji ਨੂੰ ਮੈਂ ਪਹਿਲੀ ਵਾਰੀ 1995 ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮਿਲਿਆ। 94 ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਾਡੀ ਸੰਗੀਤ ਦੀ ਸ਼ੁਰੂਆਤ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਆ, ਐਂਡ ਬਟ the first time I visited ਕਲਾ ਕੇਂਦਰ, Ustaad Ji ਉਦੋਂ ਬਾਹਰ ਗਏ ਹੋਏ ਸੀ, so I didn't meet Ustaad Ji on my first journey to Punjab when I was starting to learn Sangeet. Second time around, when I came in 95, my Ustaad Ji, Ustaad Surjit Singh Ji, they introduced me to Ustaad Harbhajan Singh Ji and quietly whispered in my ear, "Hey, Ustaad Ji ne, ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਨਾ Ustaad Ji ਕਹੋ, ਕਿ he's ਇੱਥੇ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦੇ Ustaad Ji ਇਹ, and which made me think, this guy is really important." Ustaad Ji, mathematical to baad, I didn't know anything about the learning musical history or anything, but very quickly ਇਸ ਚੀਜ਼ ਨੂੰ ਆਪਾਂ ਮਤਲਬ ਜਾਣਨ ਲੱਗੇ ਕਿ ਉਸਤਾਦ ਜੀ ਬਹੁਤ knowledgeable ਸੀਗੇ. My first impressions of them, they always had a mesmerizing smile. They're very warm character. ਤੇ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ, instead of feeling ਕਿ senior ਨੇ ਤੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਡਰ ਲੱਗਣਾ, everyone thought ਕਿ ਉਸਤਾਦ ਜੀ ਨਾਲ we want to interact with them because ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਹਾਸਾ ਮਜ਼ਾਕ ਕਰਦੇ ਸੀ, ਬਹੁਤ ਪਿਆਰ ਨਾਲ ਮਿਲਦੇ ਸੀ.
They came in May 2002. It was on a Wednesday evening, Punjabi school, and they came in, sat down, and then it wasn't pakka then that they were going to stay or not, but they came on the Wednesday evening. It was like I said, Punjabi school divan, and Jahadaji had asked him to sing a shabad, ek shabad hazri. So they came on stage and sang Jata Meet Sajan Hai Samaya. But ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ Jahadaji ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲ ਹੋਈ ਸੀ, even Jahadaji was really happy and impressed, and ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ they made the arrangements, and then Ustaad Ji then stayed at Guru Nanak Ishq Sahib at Jatha in Leeds, and that's how that first meeting was. So after they did Kirtan, I was with Jahadaji as well. We met them, did Namaskar, and it just went from there really.
How old were you, Paji?
I just started uni then, so I think it was 19 or 20 roughly. So I'd finished college and then just before university, 2002, so probably 19 I think at that point.
Yeah, I think as a 19, 20-year-old, having Ustad Ji there as a sort of mentor and guide, I think it's a really good age, but two, they probably molded you to become this the character that you are now, right?
Hanji. Before, I've obviously always wanted to learn Kirtan at that point. I'd listened to so much Kirtan at that point. You'd sit with the Gyaniji and Ragis every week, the Bogs and the Kanpat, Asadivar. So I had a bit of a interest, and I used to listen to Kirtan and knew quite a bit just from listening, but not to sing. And Then when Ustaad Ji came again, I didn't know too much about them. It's just what Jahadaji had told me. So yeah, at that point we was quite lucky. Even now looking back, I think we was too fortunate for them to stay with us. And but yeah, it wasn't just Sangeet, Shabad Kirtan. It was general life lessons, and even about Sikhi, they knew so much and their experiences. So it kind of influenced me a bit as well. So yeah, it wasn't just Kirtan, honey. It was everyday life.
To Pritpal Paji, and I believe that you met Ustad Ji, and they weren't your first like Sangeet teacher, were they?
That's right. So obviously I from Yorkshire as well, and I moved down to London for university, and that's where Sarab, you and I first met, right? We're talking 2004 or 5, or I don't know.
Time ago.
You were a child back then. My gosh.
Still am.
Yeah, well. You said it. So I started when I was down in London, picked up a durba for the first time, went to Ustaad Harbhajan Singh or Rambir Paji bhi unde se udo in Southall, and became like very quickly became a kind of a big part of my life and routine there at university. And then I remember 2006 was graduating and moving back to Leeds, and I was kind of really afraid that there's nobody doing music in Leeds. Like in hindsight now, it sounds ridiculous because there's so much music in Leeds, right? But it's 2006, so the internet isn't quite what it is today. So I wasn't quite sure what I was going back to. And like Balu Baji, it was Ustad Harbhajan Singh who first told me, actually. He's like, you've got nothing to worry about. Ustaad Harbhajan Singh's in Leeds. And then told me all about them, and Satguru Jagjit Singh ne kinna unhanu pyar ditta, all this kind of, they told me everything. And I remember thinking, there's no way I can go to them. Like this is not going to be for me. I can't go to them. But deep down, really wanted to. So 2006 went back to Leeds, and then kind of resisted the urge for a while, just because I was terrified to go and see them, to be honest. And then in early 2007, मैं पहली बार होते दर्शन कीते सी.
What does Ustadi mean to each one of us? I think that's what we're trying to get to in a fashion, because I guess, we've all heard of all the greats. We've heard the name Bai Tabba, we've heard the name, Bai Chand, and all of these great exponents of Gurbani Sangeet in the last sort of 100 years, 150 years. But to us, we actually got to spend time with Ustad Harbhajan Singh Ji, and in our lifetime, I would say that they were very much the same. They were a stalwart of their time.
Thinking about some of the things we spoke about as well with Ustad, like tragedy was like a thread that ran through their lives, actually, right from the very start. I mean, they and their family walked over from Pakistan on partition. I mean, they literally walked. I think they went to Jeevan Nagar first. So, one of you will probably correct me if I'm wrong. And even on the way, I know Ustad kind of lost a sibling as well. And, tragedy and trauma was like this thread that ran through perhaps everyone's life who lived at that time in Punjab to some extent. But despite that, like the amount of faith that they had in Satguruji was just unwavering, honestly. The ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਮੇਰੇ ਨਾਲ ਵੀ ਪੁਰਾਣੀਆਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਸੁਣਾਉਣੀਆਂ about Satguru Jagjit Singh, and ਉਹਨੇ ਬੜਾ ਕਰਨਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ. But they would laugh about it as well, because so many of the stories were quite funny as well. But you could see like them starting to tear up as well, because, and I think, and I don't know about you guys, but I think Ustad was quite a sentimental person, and I think I'm quite sentimental as well. And I can start to understand even a little bit, like maybe what the sense of loss that they felt, now knowing that Ustad is not there, physically. I do, and this is being very open with you guys, I do kind of feel like I'm not going to laugh again like I laughed at the stories they told, and I can't imagine I'm going to feel what I felt listening to their Kirtan sat, at their feet, as well. I very much feel sentimental for those times, and Ustad Ji was very much a sentimental person.
ਸੱਚ ਪਾਸ਼ਾ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਉਸਤਾਦ ਜੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਸੱਚ ਪਾਸ਼ਾ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਰਾਗ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਰਾਗ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਵੈਰਾਗ ਦਿੱਤਾ so ਜੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਵੈਰਾਗ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਨਾ rather than say ਕਿ suppress that ਉਹਨੂੰ ਮਤਲਬ ਵੈਰਾਗ ਕਰਕੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਗਾਓ ਵੈਰਾਗ ਇੱਕ ਸ਼ਿੰਗਾਰ ਆ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਤੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਵੈਰਾਗ ਦੀ ਅਵਸਥਾ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਇੱਕ ਜਗ੍ਹਾ ਮੈਂ ਸੁਣਿਆ ਕਿ ਕਿੰਨੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਪਾਪ ਧੋਤੇ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਨੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਸਤਿਗੁਰੂ ਦੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਵੈਰਾਗ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਤੇ ਮਤਲਬ ਉਸਤਾਦ ਜੀ ਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਮਤਲਬ ਵਾਕਈ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਗੱਲ ਸਹੀ ਆ ਕਿ even though they were smiling but behind that smile there was a lot of hidden traumas and ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸਰਪਾ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ about ਭਾਈ ਤਾਬਾ ਜੀ ਉਸਤਾਦ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਇੱਕ ਗੱਲ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਯਾਦ ਆ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਦੱਸੀ ਸੀਗੀ ਕਿ ਕਿਸੇ one of their students ਹੈ ਨਾ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੇ ਕੀਰਤਨ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਤੇ they said ਕਿ ਇਹ ਰੀਤ ਭਾਈ ਤਾਬਾ ਜੀ ਦੀ ਆ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਤੇ and which is a good thing they introduced ਕਿ ਕਿਹੜੀ ਰੀਤ ਆ ਪਰ and they started singing it ਹੈ ਨਾ and they said ਕਿ ਭਾਈ ਤਾਬਾ ਜੀ ਕੋਲੋਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਆਈ and Ustad Ji was that bridge basically ਕਿ ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਪੁਰਾਤਨ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਸੀਗੀਆਂ ਜਾਂ ਸਤਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਦੀ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਜਾਂ ਪੁਰਾਣੇ ਰਬਾਬੀਆਂ ਦੀ ਉਹ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲੋਂ ਉੱਦਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਣੀਆਂ ਸੀਗੀਆਂ ਉਹ ਉਸਤਾਦ ਜੀ ਕਰਕੇ ਆਈਆਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ and use that link ਜਿਹੜੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਸੁਣਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਪੁਰਾਤਨ ਕੀਰਤਨ ਸੁਣਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਜਾਂ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ he was a big reason that exists today.
And imagine in the West, right, where we're sitting here probably a couple of thousand miles away from Punjab, from India, and for that to flourish in the UK, it's nothing short of a miracle. I mean, I believe that because, Pali Paji, is something that you said the last time we spoke was the reason we have so many people who have those Geordie Pakawaj balls in this country is probably because of Ustad Ji, right? All that generation who wanted to accompany Ustad Ji, they had to learn the Char Tal, Jap Tal, and all these things that Ustad used to love singing.
Guru Nanak Dev Ji, one of the first Upadesh they give to Guru Angad Pasha Ji when they pass on the Gurgaddi is keep Bhai Mardana Ji the same way you keep your tongue within your mouth. Meaning that it's protected by all of your teeth and is something that is kept very close to you. And looking at Ustad Ji, I think that's very fitting for us to say, is that's how Sadhguru Ji kept them. Sadhguru Pratap Singh Ji lovingly referred to Ustad Ji as Raag Singh. And their first interactions with Sadhguru Pratap Singh Ji is in the same manner, keeping Ustad Ji with them close. So I think that's the first thing I would say. I think the second thing is like Bali Ragi Ji was saying, "O bahupakhi shakhsiyat san." I think what that means for me is, even though my interaction and learning within music is minimal, because my interest was more into history and katha, that didn't mean your interactions with Ustad Ji would decrease. They saw that anybody that was interested in anything that was creative, they were always there to promote that, and they saw the value in that. They would always ask you, and I think a proof of that is Ustad Ji's ill. I've just met them this year, and this is just a few months before their passing. And Ustad Ji, the first thing they say to me is, "Katha te lecture karna ta nahi chhadta." Meaning, look at their memory and their interest that they had for somebody to continue doing that. And I think what Sadhguru Ji said about Ustad Ji, that anybody that sat with Ustad Ji, we talk about mental health, anybody that sat with Ustad Ji, it was impossible for you to feel sad. There was something about them that just changed your mood. And for me, that's the true sign of a Sikh and Sikhi. Somebody can wear the dress, look the part, But only then, when you sit next to the person and actually they change your mood, they change the energy of a room, that's when you actually realize that this is the fragrance of Sikhi, which I think we've all felt from Ustadji.
So Ustadji used to join with Asakibar, right? I think Ustadji's Mamaji si, who used to make Bajje.
Okay.
Please, again, correct me if I'm wrong. So through that, Ustadji was given a Bajja and was kind of self-taught, at the start, but then used to kind of bring the Bajja along and sit in with the Asakibar, with all the senior Ragis at that time. And I think they would be the youngest one there. So it's kind of like, everyone, kind of the seniors take the youngest one under their wing. So
And that was Padia Laja tha, wasn't it, Bali Paji?
ਹਾਂਜੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਮਤਲਬ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਵਾਰ ਲਾਉਂਦੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਹਾਂਜੀ
Ji.
just on Bali Baji's point about that link between like generations to that older time, for one of the most memorable kind of periods of my interaction with Ustadji, and I think Ustad Baji, you will know this as well, is there was a rababi from Pakistan who came by Ghulam Muhammad,
Anji.
and he stayed in Leeds for I think almost 10 days or so.
What happened is they didn't stay for that long, but I remember them coming. It was Jahadaji's program that day, so me, Harjinder Pal and Ustadji, because we knew they were coming. Also, Bhai Sabji from our Gurdwara, they were coming as well for that program, and we started off the Kirtan, Mera Mansad, that Shabad, and then they walked in, and then afterwards they. By Ghulam Muhammad Chand, they did Kirtan afterwards. Harjinder Pal played tabla, and the evening as well they did Kirtan as well. So we got to see them twice. And Ustadji, even at that point, there was like, who are they? We've never come across them. Where's this link? And it was at that point, the Tigwajipe, we've never seen them before. I don't think they knew them. So after that, I think they arranged for them to come to Southall as well to do Kirtan.
Yeah.
So I think that link with Pritpal Singh Ji was, I think that was the first time they did Kirtan together, I think.
They were there in Leeds for a few consecutive days, because I think you're talking about obviously that was the first time they met, but over a period of days, what happened was they each kind of told their own lineage and own side of the story, and then it became this thing where for at least 2 or 3 days, we were sat there at Leeds 11 Gurdwara, and they were like sharing Rita from their own traditions with each other.
And those upstairs,
back, and there's so much overlap. Like that conversation between those two people who felt like they were from a different era, like that was different to anything I've ever seen, because because of the way they were talking and interacting with each other. And it was like really eye-opening how much overlap there was between the Rita that came down that tradition and then obviously what Ustadji had been carrying.
And it just connected at that point. It just connected at that point.
Exactly. At some point it clicked. And I think it was through like a read actually that one of them sang and said, oh, okay, that's what that is. And that means that, yeah, definitely you've got that from there. And, it was just a really beautiful few days.
Do you remember any of the reads that they were talking about specifically?
Harka Below Mere.
I think that was it, Pritpal Singh. I think that was it.
Exactly. That was, and then the other one was the Asabari Sajan Mera Chahiya.
If we'd go into a lesson, say, Ustadji, Ashabad Karna, they'd look at the Umar Kirtan, the Raag, and then 2-3 minutes, then start to make a bandish or tune. But looking back at how many bandishah they made, it was, sometimes it's God gifted, and it's hundreds of bandishah they made. Apart from the Puritan Rita, they made their own bandishah, and for someone to just come up with bandishah like that is Sadhguruji's kirpa. Yeah, so when they were here, they compiled I won't say folder, but they just made so many notations over time. The folded which Baki, they arranged it all in Sant Mehama or Akal Purak. If it was wedding shabads, they just made a whole file of bandashah. There must be 300-400 bandashah in there.
I think, you know, Sach
I
Pacha de Updeshan to me ye gal about Ustad ji in terms of probably one of the reasons is ਇੰਨੀਆਂ ਬੰਦਿਸ਼ਾਂ ਸਾਂਭੀਆਂ ਗਈਆਂ in the first place ਕਿ ਉਸਤਾਦ ਜੀ ਨੋਟੇਸ਼ਨ ਬਹੁਤ ਵਧੀਆ ਕਰਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਐਂਡ ਪੁਰਾਣੀਆਂ ਸਤਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਤੇ ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਆਸਾ ਦੀ ਵਾਰ ਚ ਗਾਉਂਦੇ ਗਾਉਂਦੇ ਨਵੀਂ ਚੀਜ਼ ਬਣ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਸੀਗੀ and you know, like it would be sung there and that's it, there was no record of it afterwards, you know, and if someone picked it up and learned it there and then, that was good, otherwise, you know, it was forgotten. ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਰੀਤਾਂ ਦਾ ਚੱਲ ਗਿਆ ਉਸਤਾਦ ਜੀ ਉਸ ਚੀਜ਼ ਨੂੰ ਨੋਟ ਕਰਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਐਂਡ ਇੱਕ ਪਾਸੇ ਉਪਦੇਸ਼ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਕਿ ਚੰਗਾ ਹੋਇਆ ਯਾਰ ਭਜਨ ਨਾਮ ਸੀਗਾ ਤੂੰ ਨੋਟੇਟ ਕਰ ਲਈ ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਯਾਦ ਰਹੀ ਤੇ you know, ਉਹਦੇ ਕਰਕੇ there's so many ਰੀਤਾਂ that we still sing, and the good thing about obviously having it notated is Osambi Jantiya, you know, there's it doesn't naturally evolve over time, or you know, Jodi Tyo Sambi Jantiya. So Ustad ji da bahut vada kam hai there, wo notation karan and he had a really good ear for that. So if we're not in the era of today where, you know, we can rewind, pause, and like, you know, listen to it again and do it and feel लिख ले उस्ताद जी ने उसे वेले सुनी चीज उसे वेले याद कर ली ते उसे वेले फिर नोटेट कर ली इस तरह उस्ताद जी सिखाने वाले भी इस तरह करते थे, you know, they would correct anyone if they थोड़ी जगह सी, you know, if you're imparting something or singing something slightly incorrectly, उस्ताद जी was very rigid कि नहीं इन्हों जिस तरह कंपोज किया गया उस तरह ही गाया उन्होंने गाया गया
The composition, I think, as well, there wasn't straightforward. Some are really complex, and to come up with there's one Sab Jai Milo Sadguru, there's that shabad. It's not easy. It's not an easy, straightforward bandish either. So to come up with bandish like that, it is Sadguru's kirpa. We went to Bradford once to do Kirtan at someone's house. The family had requested this list of shabads. And then there was one Shabad Gurpure, Chadni Laya. They still hadn't figured it out. So that morning before we were going, they finally came to him, and like in an hour's time, 2 hours time, we were just going to go and sing it. And when Ustadji sang it, it was beautiful, Hana. And then afterwards, I just said, Ustadji, tusi kidda bulan the Shabad, and they just said, look, Sadguruji page, they Sadguruji Quran, this Arakush. So they had utmost respect, and it was an amazing time.
And quite literally Satguruji based there, because, you know, Ustadji, I remember, told me the story of the hori shabad that comes from
I gave some khelat hori.
Exactly. And again, please, all of you will know this better than me, do correct me when I'm wrong, but Pandit Biju Maharaj came to Shri Bani Sarab, and there was a Samil, and I think it was Holla maybe, and Satguru Jagji Singh Ji did hukum to him that you have to dance in Tamar at this Sammelan, and then he did Benti the Satguru Ji that, you know, you give the composition then, and we'll dance to it. And Satguruji gave that seva initially to Ustad Harbhajan Singh, and I believe Ustad Gurdev Singh as well. And the way Ustadji tells it, they spent all day trying to figure out how to do this, and it was getting more and more frustrating. They'd go to the Galaged and try and sit alone and do it, and then people would walk in and say, no, this is how you should do it. And it was every time someone kind of gave their ideas, the whole thing would fall apart, and they were getting more and more annoyed. And then eventually they went out into the field somewhere.
ਕੋਈ ਨਾ ਉੱਥੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਜਗ੍ਹਾ ਦਾ ਨਾਂ ਭੁੱਲ ਗਿਆ right now, ਪਰ ਉੱਥੇ ਸ਼ਾਇਦ ਕੋਈ ਫਾਰਮ ਸੀਗਾ ਜੀਵਨ ਨਗਰ ਦੇ ਲਾਗੇ, ਤੇ ਉੱਥੇ ਨਾ ਸੜਕ ਦੀ ਉਸਾਰੀ ਹੋ ਰਹੀ ਸੀਗੀ, ਸੋ ਰੋਡ ਬਣਦੀ ਪਈ ਸੀ, ਲਾਈਕ ਜਦੋਂ ਰੋਡ ਬਣਦੀ ਹੈ, ਇਮੈਜਿਨ ਕਿੰਨਾ ਰੌਲਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਉਸ ਟਾਈਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ. ਪਰ while that mayhem was occurring, ਨਾ ਸਤਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਮਾਗ ਬਤੀਤ ਪਏ ਰੁਤ ਫਾਗਨ ਆਈ ਗਈ ਸਰਫੇ ਰੁਤ ਹੋਰੀ, ਇਹ ਚੀਜ਼ ਦਾ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਉਹਦੇ ਚ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉਹਦਾ ਲਾਸਟ ਅੰਤਰਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਨਾ, ਖੇਲਤ ਸਿਆਮ ਧਮਾਰ ਅਨੂਪ ਮਹਾਮਿਲ ਸੁੰਦਰ ਸਾਵਲ ਗੋਰੀ, ਤੇ ਉਹ ਸਿਆਮ ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਕ੍ਰਿਸ਼ਨ ਜੀ ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਧਮਾਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੇਰਾ ਖੇਲਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ, ਹਨਾ, ਉਸ ਚੀਜ਼ ਨੂੰ ਸੋਚ ਕੇ ਨਾ ਸੱਚ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਦੇ ਇਹ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਪੀਲੂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਧਮਾਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮਤਲਬ ਕੰਪੋਜ਼ ਕੀਤਾ, ਤੇ ਨਾਲ ਉਸਤਾਦ ਜੀ ਨੂੰ ਫਿਰ ਸੱਦਿਆ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਚੀਜ਼ ਨੂੰ ਨੋਟ ਕਰ ਲਾ. ਹੁਣ ਕਮਾਲ ਦੀ ਕੰਪੋਜੀਸ਼ਨ ਬਣੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ, ਤੇ ਉਸਤਾਦ ਜੀ ਆਈਡ ਸੇ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਭਗਵੰਤ ਭਾਜੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਕਿ composition reflects your learning. ਜਿੰਨਾ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵਧੀਆ ਸਿੱਖਿਆ ਹੋਏਗਾ ਨਾ ਜਾਂ you're exposed to ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਦਾ music, ਉਦਾਂ ਹੀ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਅਗਾਂਹ composition ਆ it will reflect that. ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਮਤਲਬ ਉਸਤਾਦ ਜੀ ਦੀਆਂ compositions ਨੇ, ਭਾਵੇਂ ਉਹ ਲਾਈਟ ਅੰਗ ਦੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਭਾਵੇਂ ਉਹ ਪਿਓਰ ਕਲਾਸੀਕਲ ਦੀਆਂ ਨੇ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਹਰ ਇੱਕ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਬਹੁਤ ਵਧੀਆ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਕੰਪੋਜ਼ ਕੀਤੀਆਂ ਨੇ। ਐਂਡ ਕਈ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਏਦਾਂ ਲੱਗਣਗੇ ਕਿ ਯਾਰ ਇਹ ਪੁਰਾਤਨ ਚੀਜ਼ ਲੱਗਦੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਦਿਸ ਇਜ਼ ਫਰੋਮ ਅ ਡਿਫਰੈਂਟ ਈਰਾ, ਅ ਬਾਈਗਨ ਈਰਾ, ਪਰ ਉਹ ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਲੱਗਦੀ ਹੈ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਉਹ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਉਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਸਿੱਖਿਆ ਉਸਤਾਦ ਜੀ they were exposed to that kind of.
When I first started going to Ustadi, I was so terrified because of what everyone had told me about his stature and all the history and everything. So I couldn't even bring myself to ask him that, can we do these things? But very early on, Ustadi said, "You've got a really deep voice. You should learn Dhruva Tamar." But I'm going to send you a couple of videos from my lessons. There's at least more than a handful of lessons where Ustadi obviously used to go to Southall for the weekend, and you used to do Sat with Ustadi. And there's so many instances where you asked Ustadi to sing a particular bandish that weekend, and it would be a Drupada or a Tamar. And then Sunday, when they got back to Leeds in the evening, they'd say they would teach me that same bandish, and in the recording they say, Sarab ne manu kiya si tame gai aitki.
Do you know, it was so interesting.
Because you asked them, that's why I got to learn those things.
No,
actually.
I used to be very cheeky. So what I used to do was I used to pick them up from Golders Green, and now from Golders Green to Southall, with a little bit of traffic, is about 40 minutes, right? And in that 40 minutes, I used to plan ahead. So what do I want to hear this weekend? So I used to play them a recording of either whatever I had, really. So if Maharaji had sung something, or if Sachapashi had sung something, I used to ask them what was the story behind it, or where did this come from? Who sung this wreath? And we were really lucky. Ustad used to sometimes ask me to play these things 2 or 3 times. Aige was one of them. That Ustad used to love hearing the way that Sachpashi and Maharaji would sing and play together. Maharaji would be on the Pakawaj and Sachpashi would be singing, and so I mean we're very fortunate to have heard those recordings and then also have Ustadji's take on top of that, and they were just incredible in the way that they would remember things and how they would listen to things. And I think something that I was playing before Prith Papaji you came online was the Kamaj Bandish that Sachpashi had sung, Jauto Prem Kalan Ka Chao, and that Bandish is hard in itself, but then I mean Jasabaji said that Ustadji sung something very similar in a similar sort of Raag and simplified the Bandish for Jasabaji. So they're taking that level of Gurbani Sangeet knowledge and then bringing it to the next generation and actually maybe adapting it and putting their own take on it as well. So I think that teaching style, the way that they sort of come down in the generations to how these traditions sort of evolve as well. things like that Ustadji would just come out with, and I remember specifically for about 3 or 4 years running, every Shahidi Purb, it was almost like they had just remembered this Reet again, and they'd sing it again, like, and every year, I think for about 3 years, every year they would say, I haven't sung this in so many years, but they sang it the year before. But it's just their memory on these things and how it transpired to sort of just sharing these things with us. So we're fortunate enough to hear these things. Yeah.
I think I do the same with you, Sarab. You know, before they were going to do Kirtan, they say Kere Shabad Parna. I'd save one on purpose so I could record it on my mini disc and have it so I can then play it over and over again. There was an Asadiwa they were going to do for Jahadaji's program. We just learned it a few weeks before, Nirguna Rakaliya in Tordi Raag. And they told me the story behind that. I think Sadhguruji wasn't well at that time. And they said, when they come back, we want to hear that specific Shabad. So it was good for them to, you could say to him, Ustadji, Shabad Karnaj, because I'd have my mini disc recorded, planned it before, and then afterwards you'd have a recording. It was amazing.
Ustad ji, like just obviously, बहुत बड़े उस्ताद सीगे, and they would tell us कि इस तरह उस्ताद नू they would बहुत प्यार नाल समझांदे थे कि इतना नहीं कहीदा होंदा या इस तरह नहीं करीदा होंदा, like it's technically you'd say normally it's bad to say कि मैनू आ सिखा दो, मैनू आ करा दो, Ustad ji would very subtly educate us कि this is not how it's done. But at the same time मैं ये देखा उस्ताद जी को, जे किसी ने इतना कहता ना कि उस्ताद जी मैं ये चीज़ सीखना चाहना, doesn't matter कि वो ਉਹਦੇ ਕੋਲ ਸਾਰੇ ਕੰਮ ਸਹੀ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਗਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਕਿ ਨਹੀਂ, ਉਸਤਾਦ ਜੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਨਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ. There's the like they would never say ਕਿ ਆ ਚੀਜ਼ ਨਾ ਆਪਣਾ hold on to it, ਇਹ ਦੇਣੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ. They would say ਨਾ ਉਹਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਹੈ ਨਾ, ਭਾਵੇਂ ਉਸ ਟਾਈਮ ਤੇ ਭਾਵੇਂ even ਉਹ ਹਾਸੇ ਮਜ਼ਾਕ ਚ ਜੇ ਗੱਲ ਟਾਲ ਵੀ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਨਾ, ਬਾਅਦ ਚੋਂ they would chase that person and say ਆ ਲੈ ਲਾ ਚੀਜ਼ ਹੁਣ ਫਿਰ, they would ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ say ਏਡੇ ਵੱਡੇ ਉਸਤਾਦ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਵੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਕਦੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਤੂੰ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਆ ਮੇਰੇ ਪੈਰ ਦੱਬ and do all of this and then ਮੈਂ ਤੈਨੂੰ ਖੁਸ਼ ਹੋਊਂਗਾ ਤੇ I'll give you this. ਜਿੰਨੇ ਉਸਤਾਦ ਜੀ ਕੋਲੋਂ ਕੋਈ ਚੀਜ਼ ਮੰਗ ਲਈ ਨਾ, ਉਸਤਾਦ ਜੀ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਦੇ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਸੀ.
Even in one of Ustadji's last interviews, even then, after that many years of teaching that many students, Ustadji saying कि मैनू सारे उस्ताद तां कहंदे ने, ਇਹ ਤਾਂ ਚਲੋ ਸੱਚ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਦੀ ਕਿਰਪਾ ਆ, ਮੈਂ ਉਸਤਾਦ ਤਾਂ ਹੈ ਨਹੀਂ. So at what level do you have to get to have that mindset? And similarly, I think there was even saying about a local student near Panisai, and everybody was saying to Ustadji that you're teaching the Shabad. It's impossible for him to learn it. Like, we can all tell that he can't learn it. Every time you teach him, he comes back the next lesson and it seems like he knows less than the previous lesson. But Ustadji never said to him that, no, you can't, like, forget it. Ustadji would still say, nahin, tusi sikh jaoge. So I think that's a sign of a teacher.
ਏਦਾਂ ਹੀ ਆ ਜਾਣਾ ਗਾ ਕੇ ਕਰ ਕਰਕੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਦੌਰ ਦੀ ਕਰ ਕੋ ਬਹੁਤ ਪੇਸ਼ੈਂਸ ਸੀ ਉਸਤਾਦ ਜੀ ਕੋਲ. ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆਲੇ ਦੁਆਲੇ ਬੈਠੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਸੀ ਨਾ, they used to lose patience. They used to ਯਾਰ ਉਸਤਾਦ ਜੀ ਕਦੋਂ ਦੇ ਲੱਗੇ ਨੇ ਇਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ, ਤੇ ਉਸਤਾਦ ਜੀ would say ਨੇ ਦੇਖੀ ਤੈਨੂੰ ਏਦਾਂ ਹੀ ਕਰਦੇ ਕਰਦੇ ਤੈਨੂੰ ਆ ਜਾਣਾ ਮੱਚ. ਜਦੋਂ ਉਹਦਾ ਪੂਰਾ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਸੀ ਨਾ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਮੇਰੇ ਕੋਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਣਾ, ਉਸਤਾਦ ਜੀ never used to give up on that.
And that same person, he's a full-time Ragi now.
Really?
That same person, his livelihood, he's a full-time Ragi, so it proves that Ustadji was correct.
When you release this episode in the description, you're going to have to put a Wikipedia link in for the mini disc recorder page.
Nobody's going to know what that is.
It's just Harbhaji showing how cool he is. That is
Exactly.
Cool.
That's the generation.
No, the mini disc, that era was, you listen to some of the recordings, even Binky came once, and the recordings were crisp, deep sound. That's called it's mono sound, it's tinny, if you know what I mean. So slowly I'm going to put them recordings up. Even when Muhammad Chand, they came, there's full recordings of them. So slowly, but you can't replace the mini disc or Jilly Cheese. It was crisp recording, deep sound.
Talking about sound, I mean, Ustadji was accompanied by Ustad Gurdev Singh, which is another Mahan Hasti that we've lost sort of in the last year or so. But their friendship, Sikhi aside, I mean, those two as a pair of Ustads, and to look up to them and, see how real friendship is. There'd be you know, best of friends, and they'll be worst of enemies at the same time. And
Yeah,
to
yeah.
see that phenomenal, it's like almost like a film. How their dosti was. I mean, Bali Baji, you've probably seen that from a very early age. What were your first sort of recollection of this?
Also, on dono hi bahut vade diggers sige, you know. So when you used to be caught in the middle of them two, and it was like you was lost, and you know, bahut vade inna kuch, you know, they've seen so much together. But it was so fascinating to hear them reminisce about olden times, and you know the things that they would say. You know, there would be stories about कि सानू कई बारी प्रसादे ते घ्यो नहीं मिलता सीगा, and then you know someone snuck up and get, you know, महाराज जी को जाके घ्यो ले लिया or something, and you know little things like this. And you think, you know, they've been learning through the time where, you know, it's not like Pani Sahib is now कि सारे पासे सारा कुछ, everything's available. They were learning, you know, जब Pani Sahib पूरा पिंड सीगा, जीवन नगर पूरा पिंड सीगा, किन्ने मुश्किल टाइमां दे विचों उस्ताद जी, दोनों उस्ताद जी, उस्ताद हरभजन सिंह जी, उस्ताद गुरदेव सिंह जी, they went through that time, and अजकल तां नहरा वहरा सारियां कुछ हैगा, you know, they were learning through that time. But बहुत ਵਧੀਆ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਸੀ when they used to reminisce about old times. Did you remember ਜਦੋਂ ਇਹ ਚੀਜ਼ ਹੋਈ, ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਹੋਇਆ ਸੀਗਾ? They had so many little anecdotes. ਜਦੋਂ ਉਸਤਾਦ ਜੀ ਦਾ ਅਖੀਰਲਾ ਟਾਈਮ ਸੀਗਾ, I remember ਉਸਤਾਦ ਗੁਰਦੇਵ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਪੂਰੇ ਹੋ ਗਏ ਸੀਗੇ, and मैं उस्ताद हरभजन सिंह जी ਨੂੰ ਮਿਲਣ ਗਿਆ, ਤੇ it was the first time I was meeting them after Ustad Gurdev Singh Ji passed away, and I wasn't too sure if Ustad Harbhajan Singh Ji had been told or not. ਨਾ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਉਸਤਾਦ ਜੀ ਨੂੰ ਨਾ ਦੱਸੋ ਨਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ, ਕਿ you know ਕਿ ਉਸਤਾਦ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਠੀਕ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ, ਤੇ I don't want them to, you know, feel bad, or just feel down in any way, ਤੇ ਉਸਤਾਦ ਨਾਲ ਮੇਰੇ ਕੋਈ ਸੱਜਣ ਬੈਠੇ ਸੀਗੇ, ਐਂਡ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਥੋੜੀ ਜਿਹੀ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ ਨਾ, ਤੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੋਰ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਹਿਤਾ ਕਿ ਨਾ ਕਰਿਓ ਗੱਲ, ਹਨਾ, ਤੇ ਉਸਤਾਦ ਹਰਭਜਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਆਖੀ ਕਿ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕਈ ਜਣੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਕਿ ਉਸਤਾਦ ਗੁਰਦੇਵ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ, ਕਈ ਜਣੇ ਕਹਿ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਨੇ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਪੂਰੇ ਹੋ ਗਏ ਨੇ, ਹਨਾ, ਤੇ ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਗੱਲ ਦਾ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਜੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਪੂਰੇ ਹੋਏ ਤਾਂ ਹੋ ਹੀ ਜਾਣਾ ਪੂਰਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕੋਈ ਵੱਡੀ ਗੱਲ ਤਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਉਸਤਾਦ ਜੀ ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਪੂਰੇ ਹੋਏ ਹਾਲੇ, ਤੇ ਹੋ ਹੀ ਜਾਣਾ, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਪੂਰੇ, ਕੋਈ ਗੱਲ ਨਹੀਂ.
Let's talk more about sort of the legacy that they've left now, because I know, especially in Pani Sahib, there were even till Ustadji's later days, there were still children and kids who were learning from Ustadji. Bali Baji, maybe you've probably seen that more close than we have.
Yeah, Ustadji, matlab, he had such a passion for teaching. कभी इस चीज़ तो मतलब नहीं ਸੀ कि यार मैं इन्ने स्टूडेंट्स तैयार कीते, क्योंकि तोड़ना बहुत बड़ी गल होंदा to get someone started. बड़ा पेशेंस चाहिदा, which Ustad ji had in abundance. But he like had so much energy for it, such a passion for it. So even you know, up until they passed away, if the students ਜਿਹੜੇ ਅੱਜਕੱਲ younger generations ਹੈ, ਉਹ ਉਸਤਾਦ ਜੀ ਕੋਲ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਰਹੇ ਸਿੱਖਣ ਨੂੰ। ਉਸਤਾਦ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਜਦੋਂ ਇੰਨੇ ਬਚਨ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਸੀ when they were talking so much, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਨਾਲ ਬਹਿ ਕੇ ਗਾਣੀ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਉਸਤਾਦ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਇਸ਼ਾਰਿਆਂ ਨਾਲ ਸਮਝਾ ਦੇਣਾ ਕਿ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ, ਇੱਦਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ, ਤੇ you know, so they loved doing that. They had so much energy for it. ਇੱਕ ਸਟੇਜ ਲੈਗੇਸੀ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਸੀ, ਇੱਕ ਸਟੇਜ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਹੀ ਕਿ UK ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪਾਂ ਬਰਮਿੰਘਮ ਚ ਉਪਰਾਲਾ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀ ਕਿ to get ਬੀਬੀਆਂ involved more as well, ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਤਾਂ ਸਿੱਖ ਹੀ ਰਹੇ ਸੀਗੇ, ਤੇ to get ਬੀਬੀਆਂ involved, ਤੇ ਇੱਕ ਟਾਈਮ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਮਤਲਬ elders both male and female, ਜੇ ਬੀਬੀਆਂ ਬੱਚੇ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦੀ ਕਲਾਸ ਲੱਗ ਗਈ ਸੀ ਉਸਤਾਦ ਜੀ ਨਾਲ। So everyone in the Birmingham ਸੰਗਤ, ਬੁੱਢਿਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਤੱਕ they were learning ਸੰਗੀਤ। ਉਹ ਉਸਤਾਦ ਜੀ ਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਵੱਡਾ everyone who is still doing it. ਉਸਤਾਦ ਜੀ ਦੇ ਹੁੰਦਿਆਂ another thing with legacy is, you know, ਕਿ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਉਸਤਾਦ ਜੀ ਜੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ ਨਾ, we have to do it the proper way. We can't just start from any shabad, from any way, you know, ਧਰੁਪਦ ਤੋਂ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕਰੀਏ। ਐਂਡ ਧਰੁਪਦ ਤੋਂ ਵੀ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਜੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਮੰਗਲਾਚਰਨ ਗਾ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ, ਡੰਡੌਤ ਗਾ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ, ਉਸ ਪੂਰੀ ਸ਼ੈਲੀ ਕੀ ਹੈ ਗਾਣ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ you know, ਤਾਨਾ ਤੋਂ ਨਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਮਾਰਨ ਲੱਗ ਜਾਣੀਆਂ, ਮੁਰਕੀਆਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਕਰਨੀਆਂ, you know, ਉਹ ਉਸਤਾਦ ਜੀ was there when they were there, you know, because they were there actually, you know, ਉਸ ਚੀਜ਼ ਨੂੰ it was always in everyone's focus, and okay, this is the right format, ਆਪਾਂ ਇਸ format ਨੂੰ follow ਕਰਨਾ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਉੱਪਰ ਕੋਈ ਬੈਠਾ ਹੈ to tell you if it's right or wrong.
I sometimes see little kids, the bache singing Shabad, starting off with the Ustadis. So when I hear that, I think Sadhguru just said it as well at the funeral. The Kesele, the Bandashah reached America, here, there. So when just to see that, the kids in America, for example, when you hear one of Ustad's Bandish, that's legacy, Hannah. Even there was another Shabad released at Pehni Sahib. It was of Sadhguruji, and the kids were singing Tera Dita Khavana, even Ustadji's Bandish, obviously. It's amazing to see so many different parts of the world. It's spread all over, Hannah.
Is it the
That's
same thing in
legacy.
Leeds now? Are people who grew up in Leeds still singing Ustad's Leeds?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm really kind of comfortable and conscious in the fact that like Ustaad Harbhajan Singh and Ustaad Gurdev Singh's legacy in the UK is going to outlive all of us on this call right now. After we are long gone, there will still be students of students of students who are still singing what they brought to the UK and left in the UK. Leeds very specifically, someone who we haven't mentioned is, but I think we all know is Kirtan, Rihal.
Oh, yeah.
So when Ustadji first moved to Leeds, it was Kirtan's family who were one of the first students actually. So Ustadji used to go to their house and teach the entire family Asakiwar. So both her parents and her. And it's because of that as a family, the Rihal family did Asakiwar at Chapel Town Gurdwara in Leeds for like over a decade every Sunday. And now Kirtan has taught others Asakiwar as well, based on what Ustadji has taught her. So that that legacy is going to outlast us for sure. And that's a really comforting thought, actually. That is.
Just a question, like you have Kirtan, you have Asadiwar, you have Gurbani. Now, for Sikh in the West, especially, because I mean, all of us here, the six of us, all grew up in the UK, right? Why is Kirtan and Gurbani Sangeet or reading Gurbani important in the West into 2025?
Gurbani, Chananya, it tells you such te jhoot da tanu khulasa karta hai. There's so much more than this. I'm trying to summarize it all in just a few words, but in a sense, it teaches you how to live your life. It's sirf matha tekkan vaste nahi hai. Guru Nanak ne Akal Purukh nu ਗਾ ਕੇ ਪਾਇਆ. ਉਹ ਤਾਂ ਅਕਾਲ ਪੁਰਖ ਆਪ ਹੀ ਸਨ, ਪਰ they kind of showed ਨਾ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਇੱਕ ਰਸਤਾ ਹੈ ਅਕਾਲ ਪੁਰਖ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜਨ ਦਾ, ਕਿ ਇਹ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਰਬਾਬ ਛੇੜੀ, ਫਿਰ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਆਈ, ਫਿਰ ਉਹ ਗਾ ਕੇ ਨਾ ਇਹ ਰਸਤਾ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਨੇ ਦੱਸਿਆ. ਸੋ ਰੀਡਿੰਗ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਇਜ਼ ਵਨ ਥਿੰਗ, ਪਰ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕਿੰਨੇ ਐਗਜ਼ਾਮਪਲ ਮਿਲਦੇ ਨੇ ਕਿ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਗਾ ਕੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹਰਜਸ ਹੈ ਨਾ, ਸੰਤ ਜਨਾ ਮੇਲ ਹਰਜਸ ਗਾਓ, ਸਾਧੂ ਕੀ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਸਾਧੂ ਗੋਬਿੰਦ ਕੇ ਜੇ ਗਾਉਣ ਦੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਬਾਰ-ਬਾਰ ਨਾਨਕ ਪੌਜਲ ਪਾਰ ਪਰੇ ਜੋ ਗਾਵੈ ਪ੍ਰਭ ਕੇ ਗੀਤ, ਗਾਣ ਬਾਰੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਐਗਜ਼ਾਮਪਲ ਮਿਲ ਜਾਣਗੇ. ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਨੇ ਆਪ ਗਾ ਕੇ ਪਾਇਆ ਤੇ ਸੰਗੀਤ ਸਿੱਖ ਕੇ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਨੂੰ ਪੜ੍ਹ ਕੇ ਜਿਸ ਵੇਲੇ ਯੂ ਅਟੈਚ ਬੋਥ ਆਫ ਦੋਜ਼ ਸੰਗੀਤ ਐਂਡ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਬਿਕਮਸ ਡਿਵਾਈਨ. ਐਂਡ I would say ਕਿ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਦੀ ਅਵਸਥਾ ਤੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਪਹੁੰਚ ਜਾਂਦੇ when we're singing ਉਦਾਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਸ਼ਾਇਦ words to describe ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ.
I mean, I totally agree with that. I guess to kind of spin the question in a different way, why is Gurbani Sangeet and Kirtan that much more important for us in the West and in diaspora? And I think it's because as fluent as we are, for pretty much none of us, and certainly none of the next generation, is this our first language. So Gurbani is not our first language, actually. And when I think about it with my kids, it's like I know and I hope I know Gurbani over time reveals itself, but you have to find ways of making it stick to them so it will still be there in 10, 15, 20, 25 years as it's revealing itself. Right. And I think Gurbani Sangeet acts as that glue for those of whom it's not our first language. It kind of glues us to a particular shabad. So over time, it will always be there and it will continuously reveal itself. I remember Ustadji, first time they showed me the Charike Kodada Kunde Pakada. Now, if you're a native, but it's very tailored Punjabi actually. If you're a native Punjabi speaker, you will understand that immediately, right? What's being conveyed there, but didn't particularly make sense to me. But hearing that Shabad was glued to kind of my conscience, and then over a period of time, it revealed itself to me. And without the Gurbani Sangeet, I don't think that revelation would have happened.
क्या बात
I
है
think Bali Baji is smiling for the same reason I am. We're thinking about Sagri Jagjit Singh Ji and how many hours they used to sing that before their even lesson started, right?
ਵਾਕਈ
Wait, can we go into that?
ਇਸ ਟਿਊਨ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਨਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਗਾਇਆ ਆ ਉਸ ਟਿਊਨ ਤੇ ਹਾਵੇਂ ਰਾਈਆਂ ਮਤਲਬ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਸੱਚ ਪਾਦੇ ਉਸਤਾਦ ਜੀ ਇਹ ਚੀਜ਼ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਪਰ ਮੈਂ ਐਕਚੁਅਲੀ ਆਈ ਵਾਸ ਸਮਾਈਲਿੰਗ ਐਟ ਪ੍ਰਿਤਪਾਲ ਭਾਜੀ ਵਾਸ ਸੇਇੰਗ ਐਕਚੁਅਲੀ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਗੱਲ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਬਹੁਤ ਸੋਹਣੀ ਲੱਗੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਵਾਰੀ ਆਪਾਂ ਆਈ ਰਿਮੈਂਬਰ ਲਾਈਕ ਕੁਝ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਆਪਾਂ ਛੋਟੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਤਾਂ ਸੁਣਦੇ ਰਹੇ ਰਤਨ ਜਨਮ ਖੋਇਆ ਕੋਈ ਪੁਰਾਣੀਆਂ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਦੀ ਰੀਤ ਉਹ ਉਸ ਟਾਈਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਟਸ ਜਸਟ ਅ ਕੈਚੀ ਟਿਊਨ ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਿ ਵਾਟ ਆਰ ਵੀ ਸਿੰਗਿੰਗ ਉਹ ਇਹ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਇੱਕ ਟਾਈਮ ਆਉਂਦਾ where it stays in there ਪਰ ਜਦੋਂ those conditions are right and over time ਫਿਰ ਉਹ ਜੋ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪੜ੍ਹਦੇ ਰਹੇ ਆ throughout your life it almost sprouts and ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਉਸ ਚੀਜ਼ ਦੇ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਆ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਕਿ ਹਾਂ ਯਾਰ ਉਹ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਸਹੀ ਨੇ ਸਿਰਫ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀਗੀਆਂ they're so true.
What Bhai Gurdas ji says about teaching even one Shabad, and this is just how to read it, and obviously what Ustaad ji did was beyond that. Bhai Gurdas ji says, "Jaise sat mandar kanchan ke usar din, taise pon sikh ko ek sabad sikhayega." The translation roughly meaning that even if you raised 100 of mandars or temples of pure gold and then gave them as charity, it's not even equal to when a Sikh teaches you one Shabad. And this is referring to just reading. Ustad ji would teach the Shabad, teach the Raag, teach the Bandish. And when you read all of Bhai Gurdas ji's vairaag, actually there's nothing that comes close to what Bhai Gurdas ji says just about teaching the Shabad. So just to put into context in terms of spiritually what Ustad ji has done, I think it's hard to comprehend.
ਕਿੰਨੀ ਵੱਡੀ ਗੱਲ ਭਾਈ ਗੁਰਦਾਸ ਜੀ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ ਇਹਦੇ ਹਨਾ ਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਤਾਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਕਿ ਆਪ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਰਸਤਾ ਤੁਰਦੇ ਪਏ ਆ ਕਿਸੇ ਕੁਰਾਏ ਨੂੰ ਰਸਤੇ ਤੇ ਪਾ ਦੇਣਾ someone who's going the wrong way ਉਹਦੀ ਬਾਹ ਫੜ ਕੇ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਕਿ ਇੱਧਰ ਨੂੰ ਭਾਈ ਆਪਾਂ ਇੱਧਰ ਨੂੰ ਜਾਣਾ and watch out for these pitfalls, watch out for these obstacles on the way ਹਨਾ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਉਸਤਾਦ ਜੀ ਦਾ ਸਮਝਾਉਣ ਦਾ ਵੀ ਤਰੀਕਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਵਧੀਆ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਖਾਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕੋਈ ਡਿੱਗਿਆ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਲਾਈਕ ਦੇਣਾ ਵੀ ਪੁਆਇੰਟ ਦ ਫਿੰਗਰ ਐਟ them they used to say ਇੱਦਾਂ ਮੇਰੇ ਨਾਲ ਵੀ ਹੋਇਆ ਸੀਗਾ this has happened to me as well and through that way they used to teach you ਕਿ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਕਰਨਾ ਹੈ but don't think you're the only one who makes this mistake ਮੈਂ ਵੀ ਕੀਤੇ ਹੋਏ ਨੇ ਮੇਰੇ ਕੰਮ ਬਹੁਤ ਸੋਹਣਾ ਤਰੀਕਾ ਸੀ ਉਸਤਾਦ ਜੀ ਦਾ to explain this so
Using that as a segue, Pali Baji, I remember when we were discussing this previously, Pritpal Baji, you said something which I've wanted to ask since our last conversation is, you said Ustad Ji influenced you into the parent you are today. And I've been thinking, how did that happen or what happened?
So, I mean, what he's given me is a relationship with my kids that I wouldn't have otherwise had. Pretty much from the moment when I became a parent, I would take my son at that time to Ustad Ji as well. He'd go with me even when he was a baby. And he kind of, grew up in that environment, and it became like a second nature to him that I had full faith that at least some proportion of his path is going to be a part of it. So I believe it's with Ustad Ji's Kirpa, with Sadhguru Ji's Kirpa that he's pursuing whatever he's pursuing now. He's 8 and he's been learning Jodi for a couple of years. Then because of Ustad Ji, I mean, I moved from the UK in 2019 and would go a couple of times a year to Beni Sahib and see Ustad Ji, but it's not the same as on a couple of times a week sitting in that environment. So I would, to put it very, very lightly, I was quite rusty. And then, now, every single day, we sit down before his bedtime, and he gets to practice his jardal or his damar or his sudal, and I get to sing something that Ustadji gave me 10, 12, 14 years ago.
So that was
And it's
their influence. But characteristically, are you as patient as Ustadji with your son?
I'm trying to be, for sure.
See, a patience वाली गल जड़ी तुसी कही है ना, ते ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ, again, if you look at all of our background, we're all raised in the UK, and we used to go to school. Not every teacher, but most of the teachers, their job was to get you, as much, we had to cover a certain amount of syllabus in a certain amount of time. Ustadji didn't have that kind of same way, okay, we have to get this ready by this time. The joy for them was teaching. The joy for them was, when I was doing long division, my dad tried to teach me long division, and I just would not. No matter how, he would lose his patience, and he would say, "That's so easy." I would just say, "Yeah, nahi honda." But see, that was the challenge that Ustad used to actually love. The joy of, okay, yeah, the student is not understanding it. I'm gonna have to find a new way of telling him, this same thing. ਤਾਂ ਕਰਕੇ ਇਹਦੇ ਭੇਜਣ ਸੇ ਇਹ ਚੀਜ਼ ਵੱਧ ਜਾਵੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ. Ustad ji was so much patience and so creative in ਕਿ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਤੂੰ ਨਾਲ ਤਾਲੀ ਏਦਾਂ ਦੇ, ਤੂੰ ਨਾਲ ਏਦਾਂ ਕਰ, they had so many different methods ਕਿ ਇਹਦੇ understand ਹੋ ਜਾਵੇ ਇਹ ਗੱਲ. And even now, ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਸਿਖਾਈਦਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ, ਆਹੀ ਚੀਜ਼ ਨੂੰ ਉਸਤਾਦ ਜੀ ਨੂੰ ਮਤਲਬ ਸੋਚ ਕੇ, ਕਿ it's not about just just making sure that at the end of this lesson they've learned, this shabbat or something. It's the challenge. You enjoy the challenge of teaching someone. But yeah, like that.
Ustadji wasn't just a teacher, wasn't just a exponent in Gurbani Sangeet. They actually fixed instruments as well.
Yeah.
Did you see the state of that Tanpura that I gave to you, Pitpapaji? Yeah. And then they were like, get it up to Leeds somehow. I'm like, I don't ever go to Leeds. I'm not going to drive up to Leeds. And they said, no, give it to Pritpal. He'll get it to Leeds and we'll fix this Tanpura. And so I met Pritpal Pahaji on that bahana and got that Tanpura up to Leeds, only to find out that they actually took it to India. They fixed it, completely fixed it. They should, the video called me one day and they said, look, I've completely fixed this. And I think it's the one in some of your videos, isn't it, Pritpal Pahaji?
Yeah, exactly.
So Ustadji got it, tip-top shape. I wish I had a picture of it completely broken. And they actually took it to India with them. So I think it's sitting in Brani Sahib now.
I'm glad you remember that story. My memory of that is I had a very small car. And I drove all the way on the M1 back to Leeds with this terrified all the way up to Leeds.
I thought you were going to say you had it out of the sunroof. Just
Sarab, thank God she didn't think it was a sitar.
They bought me a tabla once from Delhi, and they said, Sonu Paji da maker, and look, this is a tabla for you. And I was so grateful. So Ustadji saying, this will go up to C sharp. And it was on, I think, Madhyam. It was like lower, like F sharp or something like that. And I said, Ustadji, it's not going to go. They go, nay, hoega. And they're smacking it down. The hammer's going. The shy is flying over all over the place. They go, nay, hoega. And they got it up to C sharp. It was a big pura. They got it up to C sharp, but the shy is all over the place. Is buzzing. And I'm like, Ustadji, thank you. I'm still the shy is completely gone. It went up to C sharp, but it didn't sound like it. It was just their style of, just being so kind. But they'd thought about me in India and they'd actually brought it. I didn't ask for it. Their physical health was also amazing. And I mean, just when we were talking earlier, you mentioned that they'd done quite a bit of yoga.
In the mornings, I think every other morning would be yoga, Gardisi. So they kept fit and they were very active. So it was good to see Nale in the mornings they do the sitar riyaz or fix something, but yoga Gardisi, and they were mentally and really healthy. And it was good to see, especially at that age. And like I said, they were very active.
Just to sort of wrap this up, I think we've spoken a lot about the different facets of Ustadji's life, and I feel usually we say, give us a fun fact, but I think let's change it this week to sort of talk about one thing that we're going to take away.
Ustadji paropkari son, he did so much things for other people. Everyone, regardless, obviously we know Ustadji as a teacher. He was a father, he was a grandfather, he was a great grandfather, and he had his own loving family, who he was very close to as well. But everyone had I felt like Ustadji was an important figure in their lives. ਜਿਹੜਾ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਨਾਲ ਜੋੜੇ, ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਲ ਜੋੜੇ, ਬਹੁਤ ਵੱਡੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੈ. So ਉਸਤਾਦ ਜੀ ਦਾ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਬਹੁਤ ਛੋਟਾ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਲੱਗ ਗਿਆ. Thank you hardly doesn't scratch the surface even. But I think if someone can follow in their footsteps and continue their work.
For me, I guess the one thing I would take away is just kind of unending optimism of Ustadji. Often rooted in humor, but no matter what, even when later in life when the health did start to fail them, just unending optimism. And I think sort of the points that you all made actually about when Satguru Ji Singh, they karke left, and even that is actually a testament to Ustadji's optimism in how they were during that transition, right? I think there's a lot for us to learn from that.
Thank you, Ustadji.
And I think for me it's just apart from Gurbani Sangeet, being able to sit down at any time, do a shabad, do a Kirtan, it was their love for Sikhi. And when you're singing the Gurbani or whatever shabad you pick, they said try to live by that as well, Hannah. So I think through the Gurbani Sangeet, living that daily as well. But for me, it's just their love and respect for all the other Jathe, or everyone they had massive respect, and whatever Rasta you're on, just follow that Rasta and respect everyone. I think that was the main thing for me. So for me, living that daily is what I remember and what I live by.
I think we couldn't have wrapped it up better than that. Thank you everyone for joining. I mean, coming from all over the world, Pritha Paji, you're joining us late in Dubai. Pali Paji is probably
just before the Asadi Varna.
I'm sorry for that. Just Paji all the way from Leeds and Asa from 1973.